Good evening. I'd like to have the first two speakers come down. Becky Harvey, Laura Layton, and Frida Baker.
Hi, my name is Becky Harvey, and I would like to say that I'm glad you all are here. I'm a proud parent of an alumni student of Mexican American Studies. My daughter Mariah was in Miss Federico Brummer's class in her junior year, and then Mr. Gonzalez her senior year. And I wanted to make the point that Mariah's ethnic background is Anglo and African American, and she chose to be in Mexican American Studies, and it was tremendous for her. And I actually credit Miss Federico and Mr. Gonzalez for the reason that my daughter is now in her senior year at the U of A. At the time that she started taking the classes, she was also diagnosed with Graves' disease, and she had to undergo some pretty major treatment to get past that. But during that time, she was really suffering physically and emotionally. And there were days that she didn't even want to get up and go to school. But Miss Federico, in that year, created a very nurturing space for Mariah in her classroom, for all of her students. And Mariah felt safe there. And Mariah became engaged with the curriculum there. One of the first, I remember, it came to my mind that one of the first assignments for Miss Federico was a family tree. And not just a family tree where you write people's names down, but you try to contact those folks in your family. So Mariah contacted her African American grandmother and asked her what it was like to be in Pine Bluff, Arkansas during segregation. And then she contacted her Anglo grandma, my mom, and said, how did that affect you in Sand Springs, Oklahoma during segregation? And Mariah was then able to place herself inside of history. There's nothing more powerful than that to me, because when she was placed in history, she was placed in her present moment and in the future. It's like something unlocked in her. And I saw her never miss a class, would come home every day talking to me about those classes. As a parent, you look for that. What's inspiring my daughter? What's clicking for her? And they taught her to actually pursue a college education, not only because it was a clear possibility for her, but because it was her obligation. They taught her that knowledge is the key, and that she had to fulfill her educational career in order to come back and help her community and help the world be a better place. And she sends her regrets that she can't be here tonight because she's taking 18 hours. She's working too many hours at Sears to support herself, and she's got a ton of stuff coming up. But she knows that the light that shines right now on her path include Ms. Federico and Mr. Gonzalez and Mr. Arce, and I ask that you all reinstate MAS and reinstate each one of those educators in their proper places teaching there, and reinstate Sean Arce because he has directed this program for 10 years and he's capable of doing it. I also wanted to tell you guys that the arguments against this program are based on lies. Just like the racially charged classroom that you all have heard, it's a lie. I read every piece of literature she brought home. I went to every presentation the students gave. It's not true. Those classes are about growing and inspiring students. Thank you for your time.
My name is Laura Layton. I'm from Tucson. I'd ask you, if you have a pen and paper, to take it out, because I'll ask you to write down some names of books. I am speaking as an American parent. We do not want hate and revolution taught in our schools, especially our public schools. Not hate against anyone. I fought for blacks side by side, shoulder to shoulder in the civil rights movement. I was a Spanish professional translator-interpreter for 37 years helping Hispanics. I loved it till I came here to Tucson. I was told by only certain Mexicans how they're going to kill the gringos. I have done a study on their teaching materials. Rasa Studies, Mexican American Studies, teaches hate for white people, to make a revolution on the United States and take back land Mexico only owned for 24 years. It tells the kids they're being victimized by white people. Before the 24 years, they have no proof that they, other than myth and legend, that they were even here. We even paid them altogether $28.2 million, a lot of money in the 1800s. I have read many Rasa Studies books, 29, almost 30 books I'm done with, and they have quotes in them: kill the gringo, execute all white males over age 16, we must destroy capitalism. Many of these books and teaching materials also teach communism and are written by communists. And they have filthy words in English and Spanish, the F word, the SH word, and a lot more. I have met parents of white and black children, and I met some of the children themselves who were almost murdered because of these teachings. One 11-year-old boy almost blinded from several beatings. One 15-year-old shot at. One hit over the head with a big rock until he almost fainted, etc., etc. The perpetrator of the last one was a young Mexican gangbanger, even threatened another boy, a black boy's family. About 2 or 3 years ago, that boy stabbed him to death, and you can check with the school system and you'll find out it's true. An innocent child is going to end up murdered if these teachings continue to be taught. You will notice that no one ever talks about what is inside these books, what it says in these books. Read them for yourselves, don't take my word. Here are some of the names of the most frequently used books. Message to Aslan by Rodolfo Corti Gonzalez. Occupy America, Rodolfo Acuña, you see killed a gringo in here. Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Delgado and Stefanchik, telling the kids they're being oppressed by white people. History by Palo Verde, a socialist communist. Get the list of books of what they were taught from TUSD. They have it for you, and you can do a records request. And you can still obtain all these books themselves for free from the library, from the public library, the school libraries, and if they don't have it in your library, they'll get it for you through interlibrary loan. Please, we took the hate out of our schools, let's not put it back in again. Thank you.
I'd like to bring down Miguel Ortega, Dwight Hart, and Charles Collingwood.
Good evening, I'm Frida Baker. I'm a past member of the Independent Citizens Committee who had charge of writing reports for the district on the BSEG issue. I have a question this evening, and the question is, now that the general public has been made aware of potential school closings, how will the proposed desegregation unitary status plan work with closure of these schools? It appears that this has not been considered at all. So that's a question I would like for you to consider.
Good evening, Special Master, panelists. I spoke to you the first day Monday, and I talked to you a little bit about my background, so I want to get right to it because I know 3 minutes are short now that I've done it. Last night, I couldn't make this meeting because I was at a special Tucson Unified School District meeting regarding school closures. And we had a decision made by the school board members to begin the process of closing 3 West Side schools, Menlo, Bricta, and Manzo, in a predominantly Latino community on the West Side. So you have to understand that my son is a 4th generation Tucson Chicano 3-year-old. We have very deep roots on the West Side. My father-in-law went to Tucson High, graduated. My wife went to Tucson High and graduated. This is unprecedented, okay? This is unprecedented. An entire, not a neighborhood, but contiguous Latino neighborhoods will be completely changed because of this action by the school board. Now, but what I want to really talk about tonight, though, is that even if you will do the great work that I know you will, and by the way, it must be noted that the last 2 meetings, you have heard from a vast majority of people who support Mexican American studies, okay, who want specificity in that program, right? And you've only heard from a couple of people who disagree with us. So even if you hear from a few here that obviously done some reading but we don't see eye to eye with, you heard a unanimous message, a very clear message, no matter how things turn out. Okay, so I want to say, there are a couple of things I think we need to look at. TUSD attorneys. If we have TUSD attorneys that don't represent the interests of the school board members, and instead they represent the interests of the bureaucracy, we're never going to really be able to be franchised. We will continue to be disenfranchised. So I know that this might not be into your purview, but hey, we're supposed to dream big, right? So I would ask you to please look at that and see what can we do to change that. And make sure that the board elects, hires its attorneys, evaluates their attorneys, and if needed, terminates their attorneys, so that they are able to represent them. Because if not, they're going to be telling them what their limitations are in protecting West Side schools. And the fate of those schools lies on what those attorneys tell their boss. And their boss right now is the bureaucracy, not the school board members. And then also I'd like to say that we need to really look at district and ward representation by school board members. And just really briefly, let me just say this. Right now, board members are elected at large, okay? You are not going to have a passionate school board member that represents the west or south side, right? Because they're elected at large. How can we get proper representation when we have board members that are elected at large? And I would ask you to please look into that and see if we can make some changes there. Because there are districts that have the governance process where board members are elected by their districts and by their wards. Thank you so much.
Good night, my name is Charles Collingwood. I'm a parent from TUSD. Of course, I have 5 kids, 4 of them graduated from TUSD school. I'm a teacher in TUSD. I teach mathematics, teaching since 1995. So my issue is the fact that in TUSD, African American students, I think, has been totally neglected for many years. And the data will back it up. I mean, if you look at last year's AIMS scores, very interesting is that the fact that 3rd grade students, African American students, are 28 points behind white students. That's in 3rd grade. In 5th grade, they are 29 points behind. In 8th grade, they are 28 points. In 10th grade, they are almost 30 points behind our white students. And I think I read the whole plan that you wrote, and it's a great plan, but it's just plan on paper. I think almost that TUSD, in its DNA, it does know how to address the needs of minority students, because this has been happening a very long time. This is not new. And my So as a teacher in the district, I'm on the front line. I see it every single day. I teach mathematics. I, for the last 3 or 4 years, I was an AP calculus teacher. And because our school went through this, I don't know what you call it, turnaround model or whatever it is, I was the only African American AP calculus teacher in the whole district. Right? And I lost my job, of course. Now I'm teaching the lowest level math class in the district. And that's just an example of this district and its policies. I mean, the fact is that this post-unitary status plan, we had one from 2009. And in that plan state that we need to look at having a diversified staff and so forth. That's pretty quick. And it didn't really happen. So my concern is that while this is a great plan, I'm not seeing it attacking the real issue, is how teachers and administrators teach students that are minority. And my concern is that this plan will just go on the shelf and nothing is going to happen, because when I read the plan, it talks about many positions that need to implement. And TUSD has $17 million shortfall. There's no way they're going to implement those positions. And my concern is that when I teach students, I teach them like their life depends on it, because it does. That's how I teach them. I'm not saying that I don't think the district really have the best interests of minority students at hand. And you can just look at the data. The data clearly speaks to that this district, you know, and my experience, and the fact that, one more thing real quick, is that, can you imagine UHS, one of the top schools in the whole district, matter of fact, the nation. And the sophomore class last year only had 2 African Americans out of 239. 2 African Americans. Sabino High School on the east side, a great high school, African Americans are 11 points behind. Palo Verde, this school that they brag about so much last year, African Americans are 30 points behind in mathematics. So the district itself, something is wrong deep in the DNA of the district. Thank you.
I'd like to call for Roberto Rodriguez, Diana Uribe, and Salva de Negro.
Good evening. My name is Dwight Hart. I've been a resident of Tucson since 1967. I've been associated with the district for 30 years. I've had 4 children to go through the district, and I currently have 1 grandchild that is in the district. I will admit to you that I have not read this plan from cover to cover. But I remember everything that caused this to come about in 1974. I remember the inequities. I remember the focus that was not placed on students who had been disadvantaged because of their skin color. And to lift this plan now is a critical mistake. I will not agree that the district has reached the point to where it can lay claim to student advocacy and equal advantage. I still see too many vestiges of the old way. Now is not the time to turn around. Not only have I had children who were involved with the district, but my wife was a part of the ESA program that was birthed out of the desegregation movement here in Tucson, Arizona. Our children were bused out of our neighborhood, which we fondly refer to as Sugar Hill, and were bused to a neighborhood where they were not well received, and they had all kinds of problems adjusting, not only with the student body, but with teachers, administrators, and folks who lived in the neighborhood. They had an alien group that had moved into their neighborhood. But here we are now, this many years later, 2012. I interact with church members who have children who are still in the district. I hear some of their stories, and they're not different than what I heard 30 years ago. Now is not the time to lift the plan. With respect to school closures, to close a $17 million budget deficit, and the folks that we were talking about dispossessing within the city of Tucson, it's not the right approach. I don't know how we handled the money, but perhaps we need to look at other ways, other methods, rather than dispossessing our kids. Certainly, doing that is not showing evidence of student advocacy and equal advantage. Thank you.
My name is Dr. Howley and everyone else, especially Fisher, attorney. I actually came here to speak on another matter, but I just can't let that go by. What we just heard right now. You know, I know every one of those books also. And to pluck a word or to pluck a sentence out of the blue and then condemn the book, that's the antithesis of critical thinking. But anyway, I came today really to talk about, to add my support once again for the Declaration of Intellectual Warriors, and I wanted to add 3 points. And the points are the budget, the implementation committee, and the independent citizens committee. I think we had a member here who was here a little while ago. But on the budget, and I'll submit this, I'm gonna not read it, but I'll submit this. The budget is critical. I think we've heard it, I know I mentioned it. Close to $1 billion has been siphoned off from desegregation funds for everything except for desegregation.
And it's critical that as what you're doing, that a mechanism is going to be in place. And I believe, I saw it in there. It's critical because there's enough money that's been, again, the idea that there's no money, the money is there. It's just been siphoned off. And every time that committee asks for accountability and transparency, never, So that's critical, the budget. Now the implementation committee, I'm not sure if anybody addressed that, but that's supposed to be 3 members. I think that's why I addressed the Fisher attorneys and of course the Mendoza, that they have to be represented. And the third one has to be part of our community also. It can't be just bureaucrats, so to speak. They must represent our community. Now, I personally won't consider that community oversight, though it's a good thing. Community oversight would take place through that Independent Citizens Committee, which already existed for the life of this plan, except in 2009 it was disbanded. It has 11 to 15 members, and they should reflect all of our communities, especially, as was pointed out, the American Indian students who have done the very worst in this community and have been here the longest. So that's got to be fixed. But again, all of us should be represented. And I did want to end with this, and that's that, as I mentioned before, this right here is not conducive to dialogue, because we've been doing this for 6 years in front of the school board. 3 minutes, you're up, thank you, sit down. Never have we had actual dialogue, and we need that. Because long after this plan is done, we're still here. One thing that's really critical is, if you notice, my colleague Miguel Ortega mentioned this. You've heard speaker after speaker after speaker. That represents not just the majority of the people here, that's the majority of our community. And yet we're the ones that are pleading to whom? Why is it that our community is the one doing the pleading? And so finally, I just want to reiterate, this is not about demographics or numbers. It's a moral imperative. So please do the right thing. Only.
Hello, my name is Diana Oliva. I didn't know what to talk about, but I know I'm going to try to talk through the heart, and I just have to tell my story. So I completed my doctorate degree in cancer biology in 2011, and that was not just because I was smart enough to do these. It was because I had a support system of family and friends in my community that allowed me to get where I was at. And I feel like the Mexican American Studies program at TUSD, when I came here, did just that for all these kids that didn't have that support system, that didn't have someone to tell them, hey, you can do this. If you just try, let's just try, let's try a little harder. Look at all of these people that came before you that were the same situation that you were in, or even worse, and they were able to proceed to achieve their goals despite it all. And I was fortunate enough to have that in my family, to have that in my friends and my teachers and my professors. And I feel like we're losing that when we lose the Mexican American Studies program. All these teachers, wonderful teachers that are pushing, that are challenging these students, that they see their potential. I feel like we're losing those counselors, in them, that we're losing the very things that we need in our communities, despite our ethnic backgrounds, despite our socioeconomic statuses, but that they see that potential in that kid, and they say, hey, you know what? I see that little light that you have, and I can make that into a bright thing. You can do this, and then not just for yourself, because my degree is not just going to be helping out my family or my kids, but they're going to be helping out my community where I'm going to be working at. And I believe that that community that I fell in love with is Tucson, and it's because of all these people here, all these young people, all these elders. They support each other, and I want that, my degree, to help that, and I want other kids to have that opportunity as well. So I'm just asking you to please consider that.
Tito Romero, June Webb Aguirre, and Troy Brown.
Good evening, my name is Sal Valdenegro. I'm a native of Tucson. I spent 12 years in the Tucson Unified School District, and I'm a product of Davis Bilingual Elementary and Ross Rouge Bilingual Middle School. I'm here today to advocate for three things: for the specific reinstatement of the MAS program, for the reinstatement of Sean Arce and Renee Martinez, who were fired in retaliation by the TUSD board for speaking out against the superintendent, and to reinstate bilingual education in Tucson. It is not an overstatement for me to say that Latinos in Arizona are under attack in a way that we have not seen in many, many years. There is a concerted effort to ensure that our community does not succeed and that our children do not succeed. This is being done intentionally. It's manifested itself in the unconstitutional bill that our state legislature passed, 2281, which was specifically targeted towards Mexican American studies and Mexican American children in our community. It's also manifested by the fact that the law firm defending TUSD, the DeConcini law firm, is heavily connected to the private prison industry. Dennis DeConcini, the namesake of that law firm, sits on the board of directors of the Corrections Corporation of America, CCA, whose reason for existence is to profit by imprisoning people in the community. You know, a for-profit prison. The DeConcini law firm, it is in their interest to imprison our children and to make a profit. Mr. DeConcini, as the board member, is trying to make that corporation profitable. How do you do that? You put people away, you fill those beds. Therefore, it's in his interest to ensure that our children do not succeed, and instead of going to the pipeline to college, we get pipeline to the private prison industry. I want to also say that those interests who are attacking our community right now, one of the tactics that they've engaged in is to pit communities against communities. This law 2281 was specifically targeted towards the Mexican American community, and in doing so, they pitted the African American community against Mexican Americans. They've not gone after that. They pitted Native Americans against Mexican Americans. It's a divide and conquer strategy. They've not even bothered to go after Native American studies because they know that the federal government would step in so quick that it would be ridiculous for them to even try. So this is some of the tactics that are going on right now, 2012. It has not been many, many years since we have needed the federal government to intervene and to defend our community that is direly under attack right now as we speak. And I urge you to take that into consideration. Thank you.
I want to open up by saying thanks to our awesome volunteers for sharing not only the space but the time with us. Thank you all for being here with us. I was going to condense the past 7 years into three minutes. And all I got to was youth inclusion and ESL-ELL, which are two of the 8 points I wanted to make. My name is Jesus Romero. I'm a graduate of Tucson High School and alumni of Mexican American Studies. I support Mexican American Studies. They are my mentors, my teachers, my friends. I support the document, the Declaration of Intellectual Warriors, and I'm a member of WILOS. I want to ask Dr. Hawley, how many youth of color did you consult with before and while drafting this plan? And I want to ask the director of DSEG, how many youth will work alongside you as employees to see this or to oversee this? It is important for you to give consent and express concerns about policies that are about them. It affects their lives and the lives of our little brothers and sisters. Young people, students, need to be part of the decision-making process. All through every section of this plan, youth can be considered for input, and TUSD can even take the credit and call it youth jobs. In Section 4, administrators and certificated staff, you can contribute to the hiring process of qualified teachers and develop an evaluation tool for students from students. In Section 5, quality education, you should have worked alongside Special Master Hall to create a plan to fill the needs of African American and Mexican American students. Who else is better for this but those who it affects? Again, in Section 5, quality education, you can work alongside the district to appoint whoever will be chosen to build a committee that will in turn choose those who will implement the program. And Section 7, Family and Community Outreach. High School Mechas, Unidos, class, and MAS alumni are a perfect fit here. We are masters of community outreach. Check YouTube. We have managed to create safe and culturally relevant educational events for thousands of youth and their parents, all without the help of TUSD. You should include this community to oversee. You should include grassroots organizations to oversee. You should include us to oversee. You may not have the power to appoint specific who will implement your plan, but you do have the power to suggest that in your plan there will be specific roles for youth to play. Scratch us in. Another point I wanted to bring up is that I'm the first generation to be in the States. When I started TUSD schools, I only spoke Spanish. Now I hardly speak it. I don't even have an accent. And sometimes I'm embarrassed around those who speak it fluently. That is TUSD. I should have been placed in bilingual classes, then moved to advanced placement classes because being bilingual is a gift. A gift that should be embraced, not forced out of kids. I would suggest doing an immersion programs like students that struggle like me.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to address this very important issue. I'm Dr. Jean Weaponieri, and I'm Executive Director of the Metropolitan Education Commission. The commission was established in 1990 by Tucson Mayor and Council and the Pima County Board of Supervisors to work with education issues. And it's composed of 34 commissioners representing K through 20 education institutions, business, government, and social services. The commission advises both the Tucson Mayor and Council and the Pima County Board of Supervisors. And through the years, the MEC has issued 3 resolutions relative to the questions addressed at this forum. And I'd like to enter these into the proceedings. These include a resolution supporting Mexican American Studies, programs opposed to the state-mandated ELL program, and support of ethnic studies programs. The first resolution was sent to Mayor and Council and the Board of Supervisors in 1997. It was in support of TUSD Mexican American Studies program, and it advocated for similar programs for the other school districts in Pima County. And it was sent because it would stimulate a challenging learning environment for youth within the district. The second resolution was sent to Mayor and Council and the Board of Supervisors in 2008. It opposed the state-mandated English Language Learner, or the ELL program, in all publicly funded schools because of mandated segregation of ELL students from non-ELL students for 4 hours per day. The third resolution was issued in May 2011 in support of ethnic studies programs for all Pima County school districts because Pima County has a strong ethnic history and cultural foundation among Latino, Native American, African American, and Pan-Asian communities, and cultural heritage and history are important components in the establishment of pride and confidence among our local ethnic communities. Thank you very much, and I would like to leave the resolutions for your consideration. Who could I hand this to? Thank you.
I'd like to call forward Lillian Fox, Andrea Romero, and Marie Seifers.
Good evening. My name is Troy Brown. Thank you for the 3 minutes. I will only need approximately 1. I'm here in support of the African American Studies program. I relocated from the New York area to Tucson approximately 5 years ago with a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old. And I don't live in the district, but the mentoring that we've gotten from the professionals in the African American Studies program, the college prep, Saturday workshops, all of these things I think are helping my children to be well-rounded individuals, well-rounded future adults. My wife and I, being busy professionals, leaving New York, looked into the Tucson area, the minority, at least the children's school district that they were going to be enrolled in, and we realized, wow, at 2 or 3%, where are we moving to? You know, what are we going to be facing there? But as usual, you know, you get to places and you do a little digging, and we found professionals. We found folks in the area that look out for your children particularly, and we keep our kids in tune with these folks. Again, I want to end on this particular note. I'm supporting a program that I don't know technically I'm even allowed to participate in. My children go to the Vail School District, but we come all the way to TUSD to enroll these kids in the African American Studies mentoring program to keep them around these individuals. Please don't cut that program. Thank you.
My name is Lillian Fox. I'm a retired TUSD teacher. I think you need to be very, very concerned about where the DSEG money is spent. I brought you the budget numbers. I hope at least one member of your committee loves numbers. I love numbers. And this is well written. It's the district's budget book, and it shows where the DSEG money is going, and it's not going in the right places. This is what DSEG money should have been used for. It should have been used to make sure that every single kid had a qualified teacher, not a sub. We've got lots of subs instead of teachers because they're cheaper. You can get the data from the district and see that's a fact. We need books for kids to take home so they can read science and math for homework so they can develop their reading skills. We don't have that. We also need supplies in order to teach. We need smaller classes for the lower grades. The state of Tennessee did a 10-year-long study and it proved, it was conducted by a professor, I don't remember if it was from Cornell or from SUNY, and it proved that if you will give kids smaller classes in the lower grades, the benefits are incredible and it lasts for years and years and years. We don't have that. A board member has her kid in the West Side School, that's one of the superintendent's gee-whizzy K-8 wonderful fabulous schools. It's a D-rated school. Her kindergarten student is in a class of 30. Would you want to teach 30 kindergartners? They need personal attention. That's not good. Smaller schools are far better for a lot of people on the lower socioeconomic levels because schools can be very, very intimidating. It's not intimidating to people who are wealthy and have PhDs. You know, they'll intimidate the schools. Our West Side schools, many times were designed to be small schools. The superintendent's taken a meat axe to them and closing them. And many parents have pleaded to keep those schools, keep those small schools, because they're comfortable there, their kids are comfortable there, the principal knows them, it's a real community, and we're losing them. We need an internal auditor. We don't have one. The district fired the internal auditor several years ago. We've been in bad financial trouble. The district the state a couple of years ago wrote a real nasty letter to TUSD about financial mismanagement and failure to have controls in place. I'll give you this. It shows that 67% of the DSEG money goes to the departments, not to the schools. I've printed out how each department that gets DSEG money spends the money, and you'll discover things like over $750,000 goes for media outreach. That's entirely funded by DSEG money. The money doesn't get to the kids. Some of the money that goes to the departments does get to the kids, a lot of it doesn't. I wish I had more time to talk about this, but you really need to require the district to have an internal auditor so you can make sure that the schools are not using subs, and so you can make sure that their DSEG money really is spent where it should be. Thank you.
Hello.
Andrea Romero. I'm a professor at the university. My colleague, Dr. Ileana Reyes, and I have conducted a needs assessment for the children and the families in the city of South Tucson and the schools that they go to in TUSD. That includes the elementary, the middle schools, and the high schools. Over the last 2 years, we've conducted focus groups, in-depth interviews, and surveys with over 1,000 children, parents, community members, and school staff. And I'd like to share with you some of the things that we've learned in terms of the needs and also in terms of the solutions that have been identified by this community. First of all, we've learned that education is highly valued and is a priority amongst these families. The majority are ethnic minority, Mexican American, Native American. The majority are low income. We've learned that neighborhoods matter. Low-income neighborhoods still have high resources. They have access to their schools when they're nearby. This is very important, especially when we're talking about low-income families that often don't have regular transportation. So having access to the school and also after-school activities is very critical to them. And it's a very strong sentiment that they do not want small schools closed. We've also learned that English language learner children and their families sometimes don't feel welcomed at their schools. This is very important in terms of creating a healthy climate for children to learn in. An important solution that's been identified by many people is dual language instruction. We've also learned that at many of these schools there is more than the average amount of discipline, and it's often stronger discipline. This was a very strong and moving message we heard from many people, that it's so important if we want to close the educational gap that we need to show these children that we believe in them and we are not going to give up on them. And the best way to do this is through effectively using the restorative practices that TUSD does have but doesn't always implement throughout all the schools. We've also heard from many students about the importance of Mexican American studies. We've also seen the devastation that's been caused to the students and the teachers when these classes were taken away. We know that MAS has been recognized nationally, and there's even a new high-quality empirical study using the best analysis possible that's demonstrated that these classes have good effects, strong, significant effects on improving academic outcomes with all students in those classes. So we recommend that these classes be reinstated as core classes because they help retain students, engage students, and help them to succeed. We've also learned that there is a gap with early childhood education in these communities. Children start kindergarten and they are already considered behind. This is similar to national issues that are going on, so we recommend that you consider also early childhood education within this community. It is clear that trust has been broken between TUSD and the local community repeatedly over many years. In order to restore this local trust, we recommend that there is a strong component of local accountability with a community council or something of that sort that is regularly connected with and worked with for dialogue. Thank you.
I'd like to call forward Samantha Hamlin, Norma Lopez, and Regina Romero.
Promise to be quick. I'm not a native of Tucson. I'm from the East Coast, and I was brought out here by IBM. And a lot of things changed in my life when I got connected with children in the district. So much so that I want to dedicate the rest of my life helping to serve them. I was a loan exec to the Tucson Urban League for 1 year, and I resigned from IBM to stay with the Tucson Urban League and work with children. I've developed after-school tutorial programs, Saturday academies, and other enrichment kinds of things with the African American community. I applaud the Hispanic community because at least they had something and now they know what they're missing. Our children have had nothing. They have had nothing. The Washington Post said the African American male is the endangered species. The Washington Post. What are we going to put in place to help these children? I worked with children that were in kindergarten and labeled as LD, special ed, from kindergarten. How do you become a special ed student in kindergarten? And he was a brilliant young man. He wrote music, he was very articulate, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And they didn't even want to take him out of special ed. They said he's going to fail. Well, those are the kinds of things they've impregnated into our children. You're going to fail. Had another student said, teacher told me I wasn't expected to learn. These are males. And this is just an example. But one success story, probably a lot more, young male, drop out from Tucson High, graduated, well, he did not graduate, got his GED. And one day I said, you ready to leave Tucson? Somebody cared. This young man, long story short, is superintendent in the Maricopa County School District because somebody cared. So we need to care. I don't want to be redundant, but we need something in place. We have a department that doesn't even get a quarter of the 64 million, but expected to do 100% of the work. And that's crazy. So we need to step up. This is a good plan, but it needs to be some accountability. It needs to be implemented. There needs to be guidelines, benchmarks, and people in place that care about the kids, not just a warm body. They've had enough of that. We need more than just warm bodies. And we need accountability, and we need to see results. Dropouts going up. Now they don't get suspended out of school. They get suspended in school. So the statistics are different. But I don't want to be redundant. You've heard a lot that we are really concerned about. And again, I want to dedicate the rest of my life trying to help children. And thank you very much.
Good evening, and thank you guys all for being here. It does mean a lot that you guys are out here listening to our concerns. My name is Norma Lopez. I am a graduate of Rincon High School 2007 alumni of the MAS program. Basically, I came out here in support of the program, and I believe that it is very important that you do bring it back. If you notice, just a little bit, the United States, this land here, is specifically made up of travelers throughout the entire world. There is not a specific culture that makes up this entire country. There are many different ethnicities, nationalities, cultures in this room alone. And this program, this MAS program, teaches me who I am. And to have taken that away is not only disrespectful, but it's dehumanizing. It makes me feel little as a person. These classes do not teach me how to hate. These classes do not teach me how to want to kill or anything in that respect. They teach me to love. They teach me to appreciate who I am as an individual. They teach me to appreciate who you are, what your culture is about, and everything that has to do with that. In the classes, we are taught in la quech. And this basically is, tú eres mi otro yo. You are my other me. Si te hago daño a ti, if I do harm to you, me hago daño a mí mismo. I do harm to myself. Si te amo y respeto yo, if I love and respect you, me amo y respeto yo. I'm sorry, me. I love and respect myself. If something so beautiful, I mean, those words alone is basically the root of what we are taught in those classes, how can they be so bad? We've had so many of my peers, so many students that were in the classrooms, and even from 7 years that I know, alumni, that have graduated from this program, and before this, they didn't have any structure in the system. They didn't feel that they were wanted in these classrooms. They felt like it was easier to drop out. They felt that it was easier for them to, nobody cared. And that's how they felt. And it's been said to me many, many times, and I also felt that way. I would sit in a classroom, ask a teacher a question, and they couldn't even give me an answer. What is the point of having a teacher if you cannot give me an answer to the question that I have in regards to what you're teaching? And these teachers, the MAS teachers, they are there for you. They've always been there for you. They are your friends. They are your teachers. They are loving. They're compassionate. They're caring. And they show you that they want you to be there. And there has been evidence that the success of the students in the class is there. It makes me scared to give my daughter, my future daughter, the education from TUSD. I don't even want to think about it because of how scary it is. And I will not be the first, and I'm sure I will not be the last, to say that the TUSD district does not care about their students. Thank you very much.
Good evening, and thank you so much for having these meetings. Esteemed Special Master Willis, Holly, and Honorable panel, thank you so much for being here. My name is Regina Romero. I sit on the Tucson City Council, elected citywide representing Ward 1. And I just wanted to speak on a couple of issues that I believe affect educational access and equity. The quality of our educational system is critical to our children's future as well as the economic, cultural, and social success of our region. As Nelson Mandela once said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And with that in mind, I share with you some information regarding the proposed Unified School District Unitary Status Plan and changes pending in our local system, including proposed school closures and educational equity within our district. Here are a few issues that I think are completely related to the unitary status plan and should be well thought out and included when the decisions are being made and presented with the decisions being made. Recently, TUSD administration published a list of potential school closures. The list includes 4 neighborhood schools within Ward 1 alone, all within the south and southwest areas of our city and our region. 4 local elementary schools in Tucson's west side that are in the potential closures list are within 1 mile of each other, and serve several historic barrios within our community. Maxwell, Manso Elementary, Menlo Park, and Brickta Elementary are each unique neighborhood schools home to innovative student-run sustainability programs, and recent capital improvements by Pima County and the city of Tucson have been invested in it. If carried out, these closures will funnel students into Tully Elementary, consolidating several sites with exceptionally high Latino population and further exacerbating district segregation. Bilingual education. We must put an end to the 4-hour English immersion block and reinstate bilingual education for English language learners. In the case of English immersion, English learners are separated from their peers to be taught in an isolated environment without the same access to the traditional core subject courses. This puts students at a disadvantage as they move through their educational careers and sets them back. Within Mexican American Studies, the recently eliminated Mexican American Studies programs in TUSD was and continues to be one of the most highly acclaimed programs nationwide with respect to closing the achievement gap for Latino students. In a district with, in a district with this majority minority, evaluating and promoting programs that advance youth achievement is critical to the success of our overall student body. Students that see themselves reflected in a culturally, socially, and historically relevant curriculum have demonstrated higher engagement and participation according to outside analysis and TUSD's own internal evaluations. These inequities have not disappeared, and until they do, it is important to continue advocating on behalf of these programs and address the diverse needs of our young people. Reinstating Mexican American Studies is critical to moving towards a more equitable and effective district for all. Thank you.
One more time for Samantha Hamlin. I'd also like to bring forward Barbara Kreiner, Laura Dent, and Jimmy Wells.
Good evening. My name is Samantha Hamlin, and I'm a resident of Tucson. I also work as an assistant teacher in another district and am currently in the process of earning my Arizona teacher's certification. And I want to comment on this plan because I want to live in a world marked by racial and economic justice, not by institutionalized racism and discrimination. And I want to be part of an educational system that is empowering to all students, not just a few. I want to first comment that I strongly support the powerful statement of the intellectual warriors, students and alumni of MAS. And in particular, I believe that the Mexican American Studies program needs to be reinstated, expanded, and should be made available as core classes in TUSD. I had the privilege of being exposed to ethnic studies classes in college, and those classes deeply challenged and inspired me and prompted my engagement not only in academics, but also in acting on the world as a conscious person. I believe that the access to ethnic studies classes is a human right and one that has been denied by the state of Arizona. As also mentioned in the Intellectual Warriors document, I think that you need to ensure that the communities that are most affected by your proposed plan are allowed decision-making power in how the plan gets carried out. Specifically, I believe that the creation of a community committee with the formal representation of students and alumni of MAS, former MAS teachers, and others who are most affected by the plan to oversee processes such as curriculum development and overall implementation of the USP plan is a necessary step toward implementing the plan justly and with community support. The plan also contains several problematic points, so again, I would like to support the Intellectual Warrior statement and demand the following: that dual language programs should be understood as advanced learning experiences that are rigorous and beneficial to the majority of students in TUSD, and the widespread closures of West and South Side School promote further racial inequality and should be considered an attack on working and poor families. These schools should remain open. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Barbara Kreider, and I've addressed you a couple of nights already. I'm beginning to feel like a groupie. And I was on the Independent Citizens Committee for 18 years and was kind of forced off and then came back on in 2005. I would like to call to your attention that I do not see how the district can close any of the 21 DSEG schools until they're completely out from under this court order. I just don't see how they can do that. I also want to call to your attention, last night I talked briefly about gifted education and the lack of attention to children of color and English language learner, small children, and how they're frequently funneled into special education. And a previous speaker addressed this just now. Two other things. I'd like to call your attention to page, it's either 13 of the document or page 17 of 84, whichever page you're looking at or number you're looking at. There is a highlighted area about the district hiring a labor market analysis. And I just want to say I made this note this afternoon. I have a visceral queasiness about this labor market analysis. In the past, these kinds of outside pieces of advice have been used for a long time afterward as an excuse not to execute some of the needful action. And I'm pretty sure the same will happen again. This will be used as a device to allow the district to not do what it's supposed to do or to do something that it probably shouldn't do. On page 21 or page 25 of 84, same page, the district is objecting to professional development. And my observation is I think professional development for ELL educators fits well within the parameters of, quote, cultural sensitivity training as ordered in the 1978 stipulation of settlement. Thank you very much, and thanks for all your efforts.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Jimmy Wells. I'm a longtime resident of Tucson and a lifetime resident of Arizona. I'm also a teacher. I teach pre-kindergarten at a school in another district here in Tucson. First of all, I want to voice my support for the Declaration of Intellectual Warriors that was written by students and alumni of the school district and the Mexican American Studies program. I think it's a powerful example of the leadership that youth display when empowered to take action. I support the Declaration in its entirety, and I urge the Special Master to take into account their suggestions as a clear example of the people most directly impacted by the racial injustice displayed in the school district, defining exactly what is needed to remedy the situation. I personally just want to comment on a couple of the issues that the Declaration touches on. The first are dual language programs. The pre-kindergarten students I teach are all monolingual Spanish speakers when they arrive in the classroom. As they grow and learn, I am more and more convinced of the importance of dual language programs, and I urge the Special Master to recognize that dual language classes are advanced learning classes and to mandate the expansion of the program. The second issue is the expansion of Mexican American, African American, Native American, and all other ethnic studies programs. Ethnic studies programs are vital, not just to children of color, but to all children, especially children of European descent. Histories tell us from one viewpoint. There's many histories, as there are peoples, and given that we live in a place that was once the Honoatom land, and once was Mexico, and is now the U.S., it's vital that we center the histories of all the people who live in this area. Ignoring, erasing, or devaluing those histories is not only dehumanizing to the communities and children of color, it dehumanizes all of us. By teaching all of us that we do not matter if we're not a part of a small group of rich white men. For that reason, I urge the Special Master to include clear language that mandates the reinstatement and expansion of the Mexican American Studies program, Native American Studies, and African American Studies. Thanks.
Good evening, my name is Laura Dent. I'm the chair of an organization called Las Adelitas Arizona. It's a nonprofit that advocates for the engagement of Latinos in the political process. I'm here today to express our unequivocal support for Mexican American Studies program, bilingual education, and the retention and preservation of our West Side neighborhood schools, which has a direct implication to what we're discussing today. The Mexican American Studies program, the TUSD, has been subject to years of political and legal assault. Any effort to resurrect the MAS program without taking into account the inevitable attacks from opponents will doom the plan to unending contention and litigation. The goal of all those involved should be to draw up a plan with well-defined terms, with the role of the district outlined in as concise a manner as possible. The community TUSD board members serve must be able to hold elected officials and administration accountable in order to protect our right to a fair and equitable education. The current unitary status plan requires that TUSD hire or designate a coordinator of culturally relevant pedagogy and instruction to supervise and implement the culturally relevant courses. This position should be a directorship in order to protect any individual in this role from potential hostility and retaliation, which has already been demonstrated by TUSD administration with teachers and staff. TUSD's Mexican American Studies program has dramatically increased academic achievement and graduation rates for MAS students, with no other program coming close to achieving similar success. Las Adelitas Arizona supports the reinstatement of all MAS staff in order to make sure that the success of such a program continues. In addition, bilingual education must be restored in TUSD. The 4-hour English immersion block represents what amounts to modern-day segregation in our school system. Bilingual ed has been proven a far more effective learning alternative for our young people, and it's a critical component of comprehensive and equitable learning experience for the youth of TUSD. Finally, last night, the TUSD Governing Board voted to close down 3 to 4 West Side schools, Manzo, Maxwell, Menlo Park, and Bricta. These neighborhood schools serve as local hubs for the predominantly Latino communities they serve, and closures will not only devastate our West Side barrios, but also result in consolidations that will only worsen the existing inequities in our district.
These district recommendations and subsequent board actions that we saw last night demonstrate the clear lack of understanding, respect, and responsiveness to our community after many, many years. The consistent disregard for educational equity in TUSD demands a strong and concise unitary status plan that addresses all of the issues mentioned here tonight. Thank you.
Mary Little.
Hello, my name is Molly Little, and I'm a resident of Tucson and a tutor at the public library, where I work with TUSD students on a regular basis. I want to express my support for the Declaration of Intellectual Warriors written by students and alumni of the Mexican American Studies program. I specifically want to express my support for the reinstatement and expansion of the MAS program into USD. These classes should be available as core classes and not only as electives. I also want to mention the statement's call for the plan to recognize and include dual language classes as advanced learning experiences. Dual language programs provide academic enrichment and offer rigorous, challenging instruction. I want to note that the Intellectual Warriors document is produced by some of the people most impacted by segregation and racism in this district. They've clearly articulated what is wrong in TUSD and how we can change it, and this body should take your leadership from them. And I want to say finally that the woman to my right who spoke earlier actually made a strong case for reinstating Mexican American Studies, and that is because when I raise children, I do not want to raise them in a culture corroded by that kind of ignorance. Ethnic studies programs are
Monica Contreras.
Good evening. I want to thank you for being here today. And my story is a little bit unique to most of the people here tonight in this forum. I was actually born and raised in Phoenix and grew up in Maricopa County. And over the summer, I became really involved in civic engagement and the immigration struggles happening in Maricopa County, particularly with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Department. And I was involved a lot in that struggle, and as I witnessed that, and growing up in Phoenix, there wasn't any ethnic studies programs in the Phoenix Union High School District, or any of that area for that matter. So, coming to get involved with that immigration struggle, I witnessed that a lot of students would show up to protests and forums, not really being knowledgeable of where these laws derive from, in a sense that history is repeating itself in Maricopa County and in the Tucson Unified School District, with leaders in the state of Arizona making decisions and not taking into consideration the experiences of students in these classes. And I particularly I'm here to support the viewpoints of those students. And coming to Tucson, I am a freshman currently at the University of Arizona. And I felt very welcomed and humbled arriving to this community, in a sense that they're on campus at the U of A, there is a Mexican American Studies program, and that is really what has kept me motivated to stay at the university. Considering the fact that I am a first-generation college student, and that having programs like that is essential to retention of students, in a sense that it brings them a sense of community and a sense of belonging. And that is so important when you go to university, coming from a high school that was predominantly Hispanic. When I came to the university, it was a culture shock to me because I felt like I was a minority. There was a lot of Caucasian students and a lot of students from other races and across the country and across the continent, and it's a shock. And I have found my niche on campus, and that it is in the programs of Mexican American Studies. And that is really what motivates me to stay in the university and become a contributing member of society. And I ask that you consider the benefits that Mexican American Studies brings to the community in Tucson, and I ask that you consider expanding these programs into other communities such as mine in Maricopa County, because it results in creating a strong community of youth that will be leaders of tomorrow. So I want to thank you once again for being here tonight. Thank you.
Let me do a quick check-in with people. One is we're going to take a quick 5-minute break, but the check-in is like, we want to check whether if there is still a need for the sign language interpreter, as well as for Spanish language, because no head.
Heritage is a really, really difficult word to explain, and I believe Mexican American Studies will teach me that culture that I've been pretty much put against. What I want is for the Mexican American Studies to be put forward again, because I want to educate the world. And I've always said it, I'm proud to be a U.S. citizen, but banning Mexican American Studies kind of makes me ashamed of that. Because I want to be able to prove to the world, and I want to brag about it, that here in the United States we do have that type of diversity. We so call and we so brag about it, but we don't. I believe reinstating the Mexican American Studies and all other type of studies for all ethnic groups would be really important to our community and to the whole world, to show that here in the United States we do fight for our freedom and we do have diversity. And the Mexican American Studies, it doesn't show hatred, but it shows the love of culture that we have for each and every one, and it shows respect. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hi, that's Putnam Hidalgo. I spoke the other night, but I'm speaking on some different things tonight. I really do urge you, please, well, first of all, thanks for being here. I already said that the other night. I really do urge you to look at the West Side schools. The 5 schools, West Side and South Side, Wakefield, Brickton, Maxwell, Menlo, and Manzo, are all racially concentrated schools according to the appendix in the DSEG order. And I don't know exactly how you evaluate what is discrimination and what isn't. So those are 5 schools out of 14. So maybe you can say, well, we're making 9 schools that are not racially concentrated move their kids, and so what is 5 schools? But I don't think that's the spirit of the fabulous document that you all have worked on so hard. I think the spirit is that we stop discrimination and that we stop asking kids who are already disadvantaged to move and therefore suffer a greater disadvantage. Most of those schools are underperforming schools. That implies that the children are underperforming by the weird standards we have as to what makes you performing. And so a 4 to 6 month lag in learning that is the result of kids changing schools is a death knell to those kids, or could be. And so I urge you to look at that very carefully. I would like to ask a question, and maybe our format is not such that you can answer it, but how long is the period of oversight that the special master has? Because Dr. Petitcone has cited it as 45 days, he has cited it as 65 days, and last night he cited it as 75 days. I kind of feel like we're talking about like how long it took me to walk to school when I was a child, Johnny. It took me 3 hours, now it took me 6 hours. So I don't know how long that review time is, but it would be handy to know. I also have read the books for the Mexican American Studies coursework, not all of them, and we read them as part of a book reading group, and we were specifically looking for what in this book would cause it to be banned. And we were pretty surprised that we didn't find anything. So that's just a little different experience. And then finally, as a person who is raised, well, 2 things. As a person who was raised in an ethnic studies program, white male studies, I wish that the African American section of this document talked more about a curricular department for the African Americans. And then just two little, okay, I'm gonna make these really tiny points. As you're looking at the 5 schools on the west and south side, please also look at Fort Lowell Townsend, where they make a comment, the principal made a comment a number of times that there are some 50 languages represented at that school. And so it seems to me that that's an immigrant community that may well fit within your purview. And that's it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Frances Vanellis, and I'm the current TA president and also an elementary school teacher. While I support the goals of this plan in addressing student achievement, there are some concerns with the specifics of the plan, and specifically how they're not addressing the needs of students in the elementary level, and then how they connect to the middle school level and then go on to the high school level. And we know that in order to do this, we need to start with a rich and relevant curriculum. And you've heard many people say and suggest how that needs to be restored, and also an increase in the dual language programs. But we also need to look at that EL block, and not only how it's being done, the 4 hours or the 2 hours, because it's modified throughout the district based on the student enrollment, but who's in the classroom giving that instruction, and how they're being often pulled out of those positions to do other things because they are a pull-out program. Also, there needs to be more specifics about teacher preparation and professional development, something that strengthens their pedagogy as well as their skills and strategies in order to meet the needs of this diverse community, especially with behaviors and how to relate to students of different minority groups, language, and how to turn that into relationships rather than discipline. Because discipline is a huge issue, and how we work through that and have more positive results rather than discipline. Also, another concern is that while we have a great student service and equity department, that's a central department that really supports the classroom, but as my colleague before said, we really need to have more direct services in the classroom, and by adding those positions in administration or in accountability and monitoring and administering and implementing this program, we are going to be taking dollars that are going to programs and classrooms. And that's a huge concern, because I think we're going to actually, with this plan, possibly cut things rather than add things to supporting our students. And we're also keeping the status quo by doing that. We're building the bureaucracy rather than bringing it down to the level in the classroom. So I just urge you to really look at that piece, and let's do as much as we can to regenerate those dollars into the classroom where you have those direct relationships with the kids. Thank you.
Chris Summit, Sonia Hernandez, Jose Gonzalez.
Hello, my name is Chris Summit. First, I just want to say I support the intellectual warriors and everything they said. I am a graduate of TUSD High School, which is currently being eliminated, gone. And currently I am a PhD student at the U of A. I'm also a photographer, and I've been documenting the fight for these classes for almost 3 years now. I did not have a chance to take any of these courses in high school, but the impact they have had on my life from the outside has been tremendous. Simply being around the students who did take them or are taking them now has taught me so much. I have photographed amazing feats of courage and wisdom formed by alumni of the program. Their positive impact on the world is happening now and will continue into their adult lives. Why would we want to eliminate a program which has this effect? The MOUSE program is solid. But you don't have to take my word for it. I'm a scientist, and I know the importance of hard evidence, and Moss has it, 10 years of it. Most recently with the Cabrera report. When the district will pay thousands of dollars to an outside source in order to debunk it, and they come back and recommend it to be expanded, you know you have an amazing program. It changes lives. It's changed mine, and I never even took a class. You cannot deny its success. Bring it back, reinstate the old program, do not try to build a fake new one. Here are some important topics that need to be addressed. No book banning. Unban the books that got banned. This kind of censorship is ridiculous and archaic. Make the classes core classes. They are advanced level classes and should be treated as such. Expand the program to include African American, Native American, Asian American, Middle Eastern American classes. Also, include a women's studies component. Everyone deserves history, and their access to their own history and culture. Stop segregating ELL students. This does not work. Incorporate a system of monitoring that involves the community and the students, which ensures that TUSD maintains compliance with the Unitary Status Plan. If this is left up only to the TUSD board, it is the same as not having a system at all. I am half white and half Mexican. While in the TUSD program, I sure didn't have any trouble learning about my white history, but I did have a hell of a time getting the other side. I wish I had the opportunity to take the classes, but they weren't offered at my school. Let's not deny the students this opportunity. Expand the classes, offer them at all schools in the district, just like they all have math and English, because they're just as important. You have a chance to make history. Do the right thing. Make good history. That's all.
Hi, my name is Sonia Hernandez. I'm a community member with family in TUSD. I support the Declaration of Intellectual Warriors. I also support Mexican American Studies and its teachers, who I've seen truly save lives and whose alumni have helped me feel whole and proud of who I am. I also support bilingual education, and I hope to have my niece and nephew experience it. I reject separation of ELL students. I have been present in the fight to learn our histories and culture for too long. And I'm not even close to how long many people in this room have been in the fight. I was thinking last night when I attended the forum at El Pueblo, wow, there's directions to the forum? They actually want us to know where we're going. I'm not getting wanded, harassed, told I cannot bring in water. Folks on the panel seem engaged, and they are not watching their clocks or texting. All this surprising because the opposite. All this surprising because the opposite is what I and most of the community is used to. Blank, emotionless stares, eye rolls, texting, and patronizing taunts from board members. That's what we know. There is something seriously wrong when the school board meeting has riot cops with guns. There is something wrong when our elder is escorted out by force by these same cops for reading a speech by Martin Luther King. There is something wrong when a man is allowed into these same meetings after trying to bring in a knife and then allowed to continue speaking after calling for bloodshed. And our kids are threatened with comments like, shoot them in the head on a YouTube video. All this ignored, reported, and brushed off. No escort out of the meeting. There is something wrong when a grown man on our board, Michael Hicks, comes outside to taunt youth and community, or left outside because of inadequate meeting space and rants about TUSD being his district, not ours. There is something wrong when community prepares for abuse from police and pepper spray when they want their voices heard. There is something wrong when we have memories of officers dragging youth across the street, flinging them, pulling their hair. This is all at TUSD, a school district. This is our families, and this is real and documented. What year is this? I could go on and on. It is obvious that there is something wrong with TUSD, and I hope, Dr. Holly, you are here to hear these truths and support our community, because this kind of trauma, yes, trauma, we have used this word often as a community, and we are talking about education. This is sad. This is not okay, and this needs to stop. Thank you for your respectful attention, which is lacking here with TUSD.
Hello. Again, I want to thank you all. My name is Jose Gonzalez, and I am a former MAS teacher, community member, and a parent. I want to spend some time, I've had a written speech here, but, I'm just going to toss it out and just talk about some things. And I want to say that, we have been traumatized. I spoke last night. I have a 12-year-old son at Rossridge, and no, he just, right? And so, I want him to have these classes. I want my granddaughter here to have these classes, and it's been a long time coming. We've had to endure a lot, and Dr. Statement, what he's done to our community, he sat in. There's been one person who's brought a weapon, yet we are treated as if we're the criminals. We're treated as if we're the criminals. All I want for my son is what a Thurgood Marshall and the NAACP wanted for their kids in 1954, and that was equal access and a quality education. Now, through Dr. Stegman and these other individuals, Adelita has fought, and Judy Burns fought for our classes, and Paz Descansen, and she rests in peace. These people listened to that one lady that came up here and would have benefited from one of our classes. She would have benefited from it. But Dr. Stegman listened to those individuals, it's hard to talk about inlet kids when and I try to do that, and I'm still hurt, and it's going to take some time to heal. And I want to say that what we have had to endure with our kids, my students losing sleep, losing weight, yes, my students, asking me, Mr. Gonzalez, continue to teach, and I've shared that story, so I've got a minute, and I want to talk about that education that I want for my son, and it's all we've ever wanted was a quality education. And please, I want to end by saying this. I support the Declaration of Intellectual Warriors. Appendix, the Galera report, this report right here, which states what we did as teachers and as students. No other department in the United States has ever broken the achievement gap. And I want this appendix, I would like this appendix to the document. I would like to say that the 4-hour blocks are criminal, and Dr. Horn implemented that. We need to go back to bilingual education. I want to say, and rehire Renee Martinez and the rest of MAS staff department, bring back the former director of Mexican American Studies, Sean Arce, and I want to say the CRPI coordinator, and title must be amended and elevated to the status of director. Moreover, this includes creating a directorship for our African American community and the Latino community, respectively. Thank you for your time.
Norma Gonzalez, Antoinette Verdin, and Elaine Tecklin, and Andrea Llamas.
Good evening. My name is Norma Gonzalez, and I am a career teacher of 21 years in the district. I'm a former Mexican American Studies teacher. I'm here to express my demands of this district as a mother. a grandmother of several TUSD children, and I'm also a tax-paying citizen of this community and a voting citizen of this great democratic country. As I read through the unitary plan, some inaccuracies became apparent. The proposed unitary status plan calls for the implementation of culturally relevant courses referencing the Mexican-American Studies program, but does not specifically name the program. The Cabrera report was not mentioned that strongly supports the reinstatement of the Mexican-American Studies program. Both of these issues address Section 5, Quality of Education, subsection C, Student Engagement, and Support number 1B. Seems incongruent that the intent of this document is to remedy what the district has been unwilling to address for obvious reasons, yet readily available to the creators of this unitary plan are the necessary documents, specific program, research, and data to address the issues of segregation, the elimination of the achievement gap, as well as best practices for our traditionally underserved students, and none are made clear in this document. The school district works for the community. We are the boss. We are the taxpayers. Moreover, we know what is best for our children, and based on TUSD actions against our Mexican-American community in the past years, they are the antithesis of our allies in addressing our needs. In fact, this district, based on their actions, has perpetually viewed our students as expendable. I demand of this district, unfortunately, through the leverage of this federal mandate, to use best practices for our underserved population, a people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. Marcus Garvey knew the impact of these words, and Dr. Howley, you know the plethora of research that supports this statement. This is the paradigm that produces the data that Mexican-American Studies program operated from. Make teaching history from a Mexican perspective and all other perspectives mandatory. The benefit of knowing our history is of tremendous importance on many levels, but for the purpose of the unitary plan, the benefit academically is unprecedented. Reinstate the highly acclaimed and effective Mexican-American Studies program and the teachers and the director, Sean Arce. Make retroactive the application of Section 4G4 of the USP. Reinstate because nothing else currently exists that can be proven to be as effective, not even the multicultural program that the district is currently embracing. I demand the implementation of bilingual education in the research sound format, not the current segregation format. The plan must make it clear that segregating English learners for most of the school day will not be permitted. Thank you for your time.
Hello, I'm Antonia Verdi, and this is my peer at Ewan Tekle, and we're from Soar High School, and we just want to talk to you about how African American Student Services has impacted us and also our peers. We've been involved for the past few years, and it's helped us be involved in school, whether it was African American Honor Society, African American Summer Mentoring Program, or just the clubs that we have at our schools. Because of African American Student Services, we've been pushed not only to do well academically, but to also do better with extracurricular activities. And I'm also now the president of African American Club, and I've been vice president of student council for all my 4 years of high school. And my peer is now president of NHS with a 4.1 GPA. So we just feel that we need people like Chris Golston in our schools to help push us to do better academically and all around overall in our schools. So we just ask that we can have them back.
The African American Student Services has impacted our future and has prepared us for problems, or not problems, but for situations in life. For those who believed that they couldn't go to college, we were given hope. When we believed that we couldn't get a 5-star education, we were given hope. When we believed that we couldn't even go to college or graduate from high school, we were given hope. These programs have opened our eyes and given us opportunities. We want to ask you guys to further expand the African American Student Services Program and support us and fund us more. We want representatives from the African American Student Services Department to be in our TUSD schools. Even though we are seniors and we are going to be leaving this year, we realize that other students will appreciate the help from African American Student Services. And we just want to thank you for giving us the time to voice our opinions and hopefully to take this into consideration. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Andrea. Good evening to you all. And I graduated from Rincon High and a former student of the MAS program. And I would just like to say that if it weren't for that program, I don't even think I'd be attending college, because if it weren't for my teacher, Miss Gonzalez, she pushed me to do my best and to give 110% in my classes. And like my other teachers, I didn't even feel that. Like I felt like they're just like, oh, you're here, do your work, and I didn't feel support. I didn't get that from all my other teachers up until I took that MAS class. If it weren't for that, I don't even know where I'd be. I don't even know if I would have graduated on time. And it's because of these classes that helped me, pushed me harder to actually graduate on time and actually go to college, because that class gave me like this responsibility. If I don't graduate high school and I don't go on to college, then there's no future ahead for me or the generations to come. That's why I'm so very passionate about these classes, because they've given me the opportunity to actually push myself, and no other classes that I've taken have actually done that for me. I just felt like they didn't really care. I didn't feel support from them, and up until I took MAS, I felt that support. I felt like, I can turn to them and talk to them, about, what could I do to improve my paper, what could I do to improve, my writing, and it helped me. And I feel very strong support. I have a family to go to. When I would go to class, I was before I would go to school and I was no, I don't really care. Why am I even here? But until that MAS program, and I took it, I didn't care. But then when I got in that class, they showed me that they actually cared for me. They showed that I can go to people and I can actually talk to them. And I didn't feel like I was being shut out. I felt like, here they are, reaching out to me saying, you know what, you can do your best, I'm here for you, here, take my hand, I can help you out. And my other classes, I didn't get that, but it's just, I feel like I have a family there. Now that I'm going to school, I actually care. I actually want to be there. I actually give it my all to do my best. I'm doing good in school now. I want a good future for my little sister, because, here she is, 6 years old, and, knowing that this program cannot come back, but it kills me, because I really care about her, and I want her to have a good education. I don't want her to miss the opportunity that I had. I want her to get a good education. And if you take that program away, I don't see her succeeding, unfortunately. I don't see her having the support system that I did when I was in that class. I ask that you take that into consideration.
Sara Gonzalez, Ruth Blunier, and John O'Dowd.
Good evening. My name is Sara Gonzalez. I'm the CEO and founder of my own social justice consulting firm here in town. I do work nationally and locally. I'm really glad that this is an open mic format, but I also support other people who've said we need different kinds of format, because, well, it's great to hear everyone's opinions. Decisions need to be made by people who are actually educated in these matters, and that includes our young people. So quickly, students, when they have their identities represented in their knowledge, they become stronger. When there's cross-pollination and we are learning about cultures other than our own, we become stronger. When those are stripped away, we see immediate impacts, but also we're going to be facing impacts 10, 15, and 20 years down the road when we're looking over our shoulders for a competent workforce. I get to work with art and activism in particular, and I've been in several of the classrooms of the MAS teachers, and I can tell you from my first-hand experience, they shine, they're experts at what they do, and they need to be reinstated for those who have been taken out of the classroom, and they need to be given their classrooms back. We actually got to take some youth poets out to an International Slam Poetry Festival in San Francisco this year, and people from all over the world, in particular New Zealand, who are world leaders in indigenous rights, came up to us and supported us in our struggle, because unfortunately it's not a new struggle. So we're on the map, we're on the world map with the issues that are going on here. And I would also like to say that this auditorium would be packed if we could all be here, but we are working. We have 2 to 3 jobs just to put food on the table. We're losing jobs. We're fighting for our educational rights in many ways that don't always result in us being able to spend several hours at a forum like this. We're also fighting issues like depression, trauma, and abuse that are directly related to these issues. So there's an urgency to the decisions being made here. So this is a good opportunity, and I hope that you do what is right and help Tucson and let us be a leader across the nation and not just a bad example. And I wrote a piece just sitting here, and this is directed to the school board, not yourselves, but I think it should be noted that the physical layout of this forum is very similar to that of school board meetings, which have been overwhelmingly traumatic for our community. Here we are again, sitting in an auditorium waiting for our 3 minutes to speak on an issue that is decades long. We face a firing squad, a literal line of people with stone faces that turn us into jesters, working hard to find any way just to get a reaction. An expression to show that the people making decisions on our lives are more than robots. We cry, we shout, we are silent, we teach, and nothing. For years, nothing. It's maddening. It repeats itself like a crazed, maniacal carousel of a self-fulfilling prophecy. We come together. We break apart. We start scraping our fingertips at each other and become horrified at the bits of skin we find under our nails at bedtime. We look in mirrors and don't remember when we got hardened, when the frown lines replaced the laugh lines. Still, some of us come. Weary as we are, we stuff heavy bones into shoes and coats and we make our way to the front, waiting, always waiting to be given permission and to have permission taken away. So when will this change? How can we have true voice? How do we sustain ourselves when we participate in structures that we know kill us a little bit inside each time? I don't even know what your voices sound like, and while there is a great value in listening, we cannot confuse that with the privilege of being silent. Thank you.
Good evening, Special Master, the Fisher plaintiff, and the Mendoza. I copied this several weeks ago in preparation for this. I'm a 30-year retired teacher from Illinois, New Mexico, and Arizona. And I have been working under 6 school districts that were under desegregation plans. This is the only state I've ever heard of where it lasted 30 years. I'm not advocating that we no longer have it because I see a lot of problems within the school district in which I reside. The first year that I moved here in 1999 and 2000, I was teaching at a middle school on the east side, and I gave a deposition for a family, an African-American family, and there was so much discrimination in that school district that the in-school suspension was pure black, and they were only about 2% of the school. And in retaliation for that, I thought it was the federal people that were doing the deposition. It was, I found out later, a TUSD lawyer. And he promised he would not give me information. I had a whole stack of documentation for discrimination against my children in my ED classroom, emotionally disturbed. And instead, he gave it to my principal, which made my life hell on earth for 7 months. So my solution was to resign and go to Sunnyside, which is 95% minority. I think I fit better in a school district like that, other than the one here. And in reading this, the areas that were of most interest to me were administration and certified staff. If you get rid of the MAS people, the people who are trying to help the 60% Hispanic in this school district, and you get rid of them, what does that say, and how demasculating is that to the Hispanic males in population when they have one of the best programs in the country? There's been significant research that it helped with the children's success in school and their likelihood of going on to school. I support the MAS program totally. When I first came into Chicago Public Schools and was given the first white school to desegregate the faculty in 1968 in Chicago, the first thing they sent me to as a teacher was African American Studies. So I would know the background of the population that I was working with. I think there's very few people who understand that here. Just one more question that I have. I think we need more teachers and more administrators who are minorities within the school system, and I agree with the section that said that if there are not enough, it's all section 4 and 5 that I'm referring to, that if there are not enough minority teachers and administrators, that TUSD should be able to, or if they have the budget, to support some people so that they can go through, so that you don't have 1 or 2 black teachers and Hispanic teachers that are the minority. I'm also, my home school is Catalina High School, which is a D school, and there are so many problems with the African, Afghanistan, and Iraqi immigrants who are, I'm a special ed teacher, 30 years. They go to school for 4 or 6 years in TUSD. They are never identified as mildly mentally retarded or as learning disabilities. I'm learning disabilities. We're not dumb. We just have a different style of learning. And I've worked as a volunteer with people who are graduates who can't even read at 1st and 2nd grade level, and they got nothing but ESL. And the ELL is nothing but segregation. In Denver, New Mexico, segregating by language. We were under a 3-year Office of Civil Rights where they supervised to make sure that they were not segregating by language. And I see that all the time when you're putting children in an ELL class for hours a day. I think that's nothing but outright segregation. Dual language or bilingual is the only way to go.
Thank you, panelists. My name is John O'Dowd, and I was here on Monday, time before. And I left out something, and after I went home, I told my wife to go back and bring that up, because she was on the OCR monitoring committee with the Hispanic parents, filed a complaint in 1983-84 against the district in an area that I'm hoping will continue to be a focus of the attention of the district, and that is equity in education. When my daughter left private school and started at Tucson High, she was told there's no courses for her to take. I mean, she had an Einstein, she had an excellent record, but all the courses in Tucson High were watered down, and we had special projects for really bright Anglo kids. It was blatant discrimination by the district. So the Office of Civil Rights ordered the district not to do that. And this has been 1984. Now we're almost 20 years down the line, and we still have problems with making sure that the minority students have quality education. It's very important to not just track the kids by virtue of their national origin or their race. You've got to be very careful doing that, and this district has a very poor history of avoiding that. And And I would think, Dr. Holly, that part of your job is to make sure the programs that have been instituted are really working. And we're letting the minorities, giving them the advantages to achieve at the highest levels. In our magnet courses at Tucson High, we still don't have the number of minorities we should have compared to our population of minorities. It's a difficult thing, but it's not working with $60 million every year going to supposedly solve that problem. It doesn't seem to be working. But I'd like to remind this panel that the legislature capped that amount. We can't get any more for additional programs. We have to use the money we have to do the best we can. And if we spend a lot of money in court, sorry, Ruben, but we spend a lot of money, trying to sort things out. We should know by now what needs to be done. We ought to be able to use that money effectively without going back and in the fashion that the proposed settlement decree or is examining everything and doing all these studies. It seems like by now we ought to be able to take the bull by the horns and really go forward. Thank you very much.
Joseph Arenas, Aaron Kane Hodge, Ben Davis.
Thank you for your time. My name is Joseph Arenas. I'm a Tucson native of French, Basque, Opata, and Mexican descent. My family has 5 generations here, now my grandsons. I served in the U.S. Army, 2 Army Achievement Medals, National Defense Ribbon, Mechanics Badge, Driver's Badge. It's the only oath of allegiance I've ever taken. I support the Mexican American Studies program. Independent studies have shown that the Mexican American Studies program under Sean Arce's leadership closed the achievement gap. The attack on Mexican American Studies here at Tucson Unified School District has been an expensive political witch hunt. The success of the program was called a cult by Dr. Stegman, or dismissed. The success of the program was dismissed by Dr. Stegman. Michael Hicks admits on record that he based his opinions on the program based on hearsay. State Representative Frank Antonori, who is an opponent of the program, because he went into the classroom and didn't see what he wanted to see. He said they gave him a dog and pony show. He's on record saying that. And I support the program. When we set out to start the program, we didn't set out in 1995 when I got involved. Citywide, we got involved because we had a gang epidemic. It was an epidemic that was so bad that the state of Arizona formed a gang task force. A task force that pulled me over when I was home on leave from the Army, searched our car. We knew we had a problem. We had kids dying, we had kids getting shot coming home from school. My 17-year-old brother was murdered a month after his birthday. He didn't have the opportunity to take the Mexican American Studies program. Sean Arce's solution was the Mexican American Studies program. And we were demanding relevant education. That was what we were demanding, was relevant education. Sean Arce developed the Mexican American Studies program. He said, hey, how about this? He showed that it worked. It worked. The independent studies showed that it worked. Everybody else is just, basing it off of hearsay and, unsubstantiated, people who aren't qualified calling it a cult. So I support the reinstatement of the Mexican American Studies program under the direction of Sean Arce. It's been proven effective based on, he's the only director I know that a program is successful, but he doesn't get the credit for making it a successful program. I don't understand that. Thank you.
My name is Aaron Kane Hodge, and I am a 2010 Mass graduate from Tucson High. I'm a current University of Arizona student and a member of the Mulos. I want to thank you for having this forum in a space that is large enough to hold the people who want to be here, and thank you for not treating this community like criminals by forcing us to walk through a metal detector. I believe the plan is a great first step, but I have a hard time putting any faith in it because I do not have the confidence that it will be enforced or implemented properly. The communities facing the problems facing the Chicano community are not new, and there have been many outsiders who've tried to step in and help before, and it hasn't gotten any better, so I'm not sure why it would be different this time. The math classes need to be brought back because they taught me to be a critically conscious young woman. They taught me the importance of questioning my reality. They taught me about white privilege, sexism, homophobia, racism, ageism, and classism. I never read a single book by an African American, a Chicano, or by a woman until my junior year of high school in my MAS English class. These classes taught me to value people from other backgrounds, gave me the courage to speak up for myself and to share my opinion, and it made me a more well-rounded, conscious person. I urge you to have public forums during the hiring process and include youth in the decision-making process. It's important because we're the students from the program, and I think that we know what's best for our peers and for our younger siblings. I'd also urge you to articulate the reinstatement and the expansion of the Mexican American Indigenous Studies program. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Ben Davis, and a few years ago, a young lady came to me and she was having trouble with her children being labeled as ADD in the TUSD school system. I talked with the kids and heard their complaints and their troubles. I found out a month later that the kids had been, after being labeled, they had been sent home for bad behavior, so forth and so on, but they had been labeled ADD. Simultaneously, the White House recognized these two children as being in the upper 1 percentile of academic achievement in their age group across America. And I'm trying to figure out how can they be just ADD here, TUSD, and the White House recognized them to a national competition of academic achievement in the upper 1%. So, but from that time to this time, the kids have gone on to excel in great careers outside of the state of Arizona. For a year and a half, I volunteer mentored young boys, black, white, and Latino at middle school. The suspension rate was over 100%. When they went on to high school this year, as a result of me being on them and treating them with understanding and love and giving them a desire to excel, 80% graduated from Mansfield with academic achievement. However, there were 3 sad stories. They couldn't recite their times tables. When I asked them to look at an analog clock with Roman numerals, it was difficult for them to tell the time. They could look at a digital clock and tell because the printout was right there. A few months ago, an engineer friend of mine got with me from Raytheon, and we presented to the principal of Mansfield Middle School a program called VREP, Virtual Reality Education Program. What that does is put the student inside the engine of a car, inside a human heart, or inside of a blood vessel, and let them see with animated color what's happening inside. It inspired me to learn more about what I saw. But Mansfield couldn't do it because it was $4,500. I can raise that much money in a month right here. So my question is, if it's implemented in the cornfields of Iowa and in the cornfields of Ohio, where there are very few students of color, why can't it be done here? Thank you.
Riley Merlene, Isa Mena, Sylvia Reynoso. Isa Mena, I don't see Riley, so. Yeah, it doesn't see him. All right. Isa Mena.
Hi. My name is Isa Mena. I'm currently a senior at Tucson High. Last year, I was enrolled in the Mexican American Studies program, but only for a semester before it was dismantled. Now I attend an after-school Chicano literature class. I was so passionate about these classes, excuse me. I dedicated my weekends to them. These teachers are not brainwashers. They inspired me to do my best, for my best interest and for my community. If it weren't for MAS, I would not be dedicating all my free time to my community. I wouldn't be confident about applying to colleges. I want my little cousins to experience the same education I did while in these classes. I support the reinstatement of MAS, and I co-wrote the Declaration of Intellectual Workers. Yeah! Woo!
Hello, thank you for all being here. This is specifically to the special master. Hi, I'm Sylvia Reynoso, Yante. I'm Navajo. I'm a parent with the TUSD district. I have twin girls in the 3rd grade. My son is in Project ABLE or Partners. As you can see, I plan to be with TUSD for a while. My concern, loud and clear, we as Native Americans are being ignored and left out of this unitary status plan. Why? Tucson has Native American history with 2 tribes, Pasquayaki and Tohono O'odham. And we are part of the TUSD as Native American people. Being that my children are half Navajo and half Hispanic, we support the Native American Student Services and the Mexican American Studies. We as Native Americans, we exist too. Let's teach our children that it doesn't matter whether we're yellow, orange, purple, or green. Ahiahat. Thank you.
Billy Lolos, Nancy Rivera, and Cristel Ann Foster.
Hello, my name is Billy Lolis, and I'm an occupier in Occupy Tucson. I never went to Tucson schools. I've been in Tucson since 1997. I have no children in Tucson schools, so why am I here? Well, as an occupier, I believe in truth, justice, and sustainability. And there's something going on here that no one's talked about. I don't think. I know I talked to the board the night they fired Sean, and I said to them that I really don't know much about the program, but I read in the paper, and I read Attorney General Horn said it instills anti-American sentiment. That's horse manure. SB 1070 instills anti-American sentiment. To ban a program that graduates 98% of its students in this era of No Child Left Behind is asinine. So what's the motivation? He's a former superintendent of schools. There's also an organization called ALEC, and they run our state. They run 21 states in this country, and they have a plan. And the plan is to privatize education. They don't want public education. They want to control our education. And believe me, for 39 years, ALEC has been grooming these politicians, and I can recite the bills they passed: stand your ground, voter access, women's reproductive rights, their use, and collective bargaining. This is their plan. And it's the reason we're here is because the bureaucrats in Phoenix said you can't have a successful program because we want public education to fail. I wish I had an answer. I wish I could tell you this is how we could fight back. But believe me, they did the same thing in Michigan. They took control of the city. They said, you're not running it right. They're taking control of our school system. They're saying we're not running it right. How much money is sucked off out of the budget from vouchers? And if that's not discrimination, I don't know what is. You want to send your kids to a private school? Don't use public funds to do it. Thank you.
what they wanted to say rather than a time limit. I'd like to let you know my name is Nancy Rivera. I was born in Tucson. I went to TUSD schools. It was at Tucson District 1 at that time. I went to Tucson High, I went to the University of Arizona. I'm an Arizona taxpayer. I'm a parent. My children both went through TUSD schools and through the University of Arizona. I am a teacher. I love being a teacher. I taught in TUSD for 24 years. I'm retired and I now go substituting. I wanted you to know that when I was in high school at Tucson High in 1964 and 65, we were not invited to the after-school games at the other high schools on the east side of Tucson because we had Black and Mexican-American students. The only schools that we were invited to the games, the dances, the after-school dances was at Pueblo and at Palo Verde. They welcomed us. So this is part of my history. I wanted you to know that I helped children say the Pledge of Allegiance, and the important part to me was the end where I say, and justice for all. I'd like you to know that the Bob Marley song, War, is very important. He says that we will have war everywhere and strife until there is justice. And I wanted you to know that I have here a thing I printed out from from Willis Hawley, Strategies for Reducing Racial and Ethnic Prejudice, Essential Principles for Program Design, and I hope this is an essential part of any of the whole plan. I have not been able to study and read the plan in full yet, and I'm hoping that perhaps you'll still accept written comments. I wanted to read one part here because I feel it's important, and it's the concept of the melting pot. Persons of color and immigrants are often expected to assimilate in the dominant white culture, are resented when they are hold to cultural traditions, when they hold on to cultural traditions or language. The effort to identify English as the official language of the United States is a manifestation of the value that many whites place on assimilation, as is the recent concern that multicultural education will lead to the breakdown of our national identity. In fact, the expectation of assimilation is a repudiation of the value that can be derived from the nation's diversity and is actively resisted by many groups. While some people insist that persons of color and certain ethnic backgrounds should abandon their racial and ethnic identities, others insist that individuals should choose a single cultural identity. Strategies to improve intergroup relations and to ensure policies and practices that require people to identify with one racial or ethnic group inadvertently communicate a lack of respect for persons with bicultural, multicultural, and any cultural identity. Similarly, when racial and ethnic groups put pressure on persons with complex identities to be one or the other, they discriminate against such individuals. We need to speak against assimilation and for pluralism. I wanted you to know, and I hope that I will try not to make it long, but what the other gentleman spoke about, because I do not know what states or where you are from, you need to know about what is the political situation in Arizona and the agenda to privatize and voucherize public education. You need to know that over $60 and $70 million is going each year to private, of our tax money is being diverted with tax credits to private and religious schools in strict violation of the Arizona Constitution. That the state of Arizona gave tax deductions, tax cuts to businesses for property tax this past year, for income tax this past year, and for equipment tax, and tried to put through a proposition to further that. I wanted you to know that I want to support all children's right to learn the truth about American history, about history, her story, their story, and my story, because maybe in an ideal world we would have Mexican American Studies class, an African American Studies, American Indian Studies, and everybody in the entire school would go to each one of these classes. I hope you saw the movie Precious Knowledge. I was part of the book study group this summer that we read all the books and discussed it. We found the books were wonderful. The film, when I saw it, I said, this is the most amazing pedagogy. This is using best strategies. They're using critical thinking. They're teaching children to take charge of their own learning. The best thing that a child can have is to love, to learn, and to have a teacher that loves them and cares about them. Like some of the students have testified to, I saw teachers that loved their students, that were concerned with their students. We don't need Benjamin Franklin's picture in our classroom. The film did not focus in, but I thought I saw collages that children had made of their own families and their own selves. Excuse me. And that's what we need in a classroom. Children, education that focuses on the child. When I taught first grade, I taught first, second, and third grade. And I had to fight Success for All. It's a program out of Johns Hopkins University. It ability grouped children. It sent children around to different teachers. And it was not positive for the children. So the thing that I want you to remember is that the most important thing are teachers that are professional, that create their own curriculum, that love their children, and get their children involved to be lifelong learners. This is what's important.
Good evening, Dr. Holly, Fisher Mendoza Council, and Councilor Gaines and Mr. Brown. My name is Crystal Ann Foster. I'm a teacher, a community member, and governing board member-elect for TUSD. I appreciate the time that Dr. Holly and Mrs. Gaines have taken to meet with me and Cam Juarez to catch us up on this process that's taking place before you present the final unitary status plan to Judge Murray. I would like to reiterate some comments made this evening and earlier this week at other forums, as well as what we talked about, comments that resonate with me. As I shared in our meeting, I commend you for creating a 21st century unitary plan that places achievement as a primary goal, not just opportunity. And I commented on the importance of crafting a plan that provides core academic classes based on culturally responsive pedagogy. And that's so important because right now, for the first time in our history, we have a national curriculum known as the Common Core. And so now more than ever, we really have to protect the local funds of knowledge at every community level. And I also thank you for including the expansion of our successful and highly sought after dual language program that TUSD has been able to protect in our state of Arizona, which actually says a lot for me. I voiced my concerns. I'd like to voice some concerns as well. I shared with you that the word on the street, or rather in our classroom hall, is that we have Mexican rooms in our schools. Young people refer to this when they describe their present-day educational experience as ELL learners in our state. This stirs up great historical accounts of what school was like in our past. A past that I share with my students when I read them the story of Ruby Burgess, who so boldly took the first step to integrate our schools in the Southeast. And it's wrong that we now have segregated classrooms in the Southwest. And any desegregation plan coming out of Arizona today must address the 4-hour ELL segregated block that all of us here in Arizona are complying with. This plan, as we have noted, also wiggles its way around the controversial issue of Mexican American Studies. TUSD's assessment department, ADE's Cambian report, and the Cabrera report that you commissioned, as well as parent, student, and teacher testimony, all point to the unprecedented academic achievement of graduates from our former MAS program. Dr. Hawley, our community has elected a new governing board, a bold governing board, who is poised to stand up for and protect our students and our teachers. We need a bold plan with very specific language and direction to end segregation in our schools, to bring Mexican American studies back, and expand this pedagogy. Again, we have a bold board, and we need a bold plan. Thank you.
Jason Thompson, David Walker, Maria Federico Brummer.
Good evening. It should be Joanne Thompson.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Thank you for being here and allowing me this opportunity to speak with you. I came to Tucson in 1978. I was a former member of the ICC community. I attended Monday night's forum and tonight's forum, and I've heard many of us discuss different reports. I would like to just remind you, or if you haven't had the opportunity, to go and read for the very first time the ICC Independent Citizen Committee report of 2005. It is amazing that we stand here in the year 2012 discussing DSEG. It's just mind-boggling. The ICC committee fought for many years, but the one report, 2005, has a lot of what's in your plan. It's a shame that we are still here 7 years later and thousands of dollars more discussing desegregation in TUSD. Thank you.
David Walker. Okay. Maria Federico Brummer.
I'm a Mexican American Studies teacher. I was a former, but I know that in our hearts will always be. Thank you again for holding this forum. Dr. Hawley, it's a privilege to be able to have our daughters actually use a facility in such a setting rather than having to urinate out on the street in front of our district headquarters. I would like to again reiterate, I'm honored and proud to state my support for the Declaration of Intellectual Warriors. These are my students, these are my alumni, these are our community members, these are their voices, these are their equitable demands for an education, not just for them, but for the generations to come. This community in which they represent has been stripped of their culture, their language, and their education by those whose job it is to provide them a quality education, an equitable education that TUSD hasn't given them anymore. And it's such people, such as our superintendent, John Pettico, who have denied them this, and other board members such as Mark Stegman, who's right here. And it's a travesty that we're having to be in this state, in this condition. I also would like to state my support of the Augusta plaintiff's letter that you should be receiving if you haven't already, as it represents us as Mexican American Studies educators and the students who are challenging this insidious law that is now Arizona State statute. Specifically, I would like to reiterate, it's in the letter as well, that TUSD Mexican American Studies courses were designed for Mexican American students with an emphasis on indigenous culture, indigenous Mexican culture. This is not some vague Latino group. It's very specific. Our curriculum is very specific. This is why our students were able to eliminate that achievement gap, because we designed that curriculum for them, specifically for them. The Cabrera report, of course, emphasizes that. Under the leadership of Sean Arsek, our director, who was taken away from the department, the Mexican American Studies program was expanding in a quality educational setting the way that it should have been. This is something that our students need immediately reinstated. We need our director, and we need our colleagues who, such as Renee Martinez, who were displaced because of this. Our students have flourished with this program. Our students are demanding not just Mexican American Studies, they're demanding African American Studies, Native American Studies, Women's Studies, and it's no longer, I hate these slides. It's no longer an option. It's no longer an option just for this district to ignore those educational demands that our students have. Thank you so much.
Gabriel Gonzalez, Sylvia Campo, and Rosie Hernandez.
I just want to say, please forgive me in advance before I start to stutter. I didn't plan on speaking tonight, but I felt that I needed to say something. I don't have that much knowledge in all of this, but I know with the knowledge of God that these classes make sense. I feel that it is hatred in the people who don't want these classes, and those who want hatred in those who don't want their own education. All these classes is an act of kindness through God Himself. These classes are a blessing, a gift to those who are lost in this world. For those who don't feel like they have a place in this world. These classes give students a place in this world and a reason to go out and do something with their beautiful lives. All I see is love in these classes, and I know that this because of my Tío Jose. He is truly a man of God, and I say this because it is what he speaks about how amazing his classes are and how amazing his students are doing in class. I know that God will always be with him, and I know my Tío would die a martyr for what he believes in. And he believes in educating others and their background. And no matter what, I know that God is leading him in this mission. God is love. And I chose a little verse from the Bible, and I just want to dedicate it to those who are fighting for this great cause. It's Exodus 23:20. See, I am sending an angel before you to protect you on your journey and lead you to safety to the place I have prepared for you. Pay close attention to him and obey his instructions. Do not rebel against him, for he is my representative, and he will not forgive your rebellion. But if you are careful to obey him, following all my instructions, then I will be an enemy to your enemies, and I will oppose those who oppose you. Thank you, and keep Mexican American studies, and God bless everyone in here.
Thank you for the honor of being able to speak with you tonight. Rose Hernandez gave me 3 minutes, and I hope that I can indulge that time to read a poem to you. I'm a 6th-generation Tucsonian. My relationship with TUSD started in 1956 when I was a first grader as a non-English speaking student. Back then they did time out. Today they do ELL. And the structured English immersion isn't much more than time out. I've been a student, a parent, a teacher, a bilingual ed teacher, a special ed teacher, a civil rights compliance officer, the first one for TUSD. I've been a board member, and I've been a civil rights activist both professionally and in my personal life. I wrote this poem in February, shortly after mosques had been dismantled. Never to be silenced. She sits pensively in her literature class while she stares at nothing. She ponders. If she is the same, and her teacher is the same as before, when the class content dealt with American authors of Mexican heritage, why is everything so different now? This is the year that she began to love literature, the year that she fell in love with words, pages, books, and authors. This is the year that being Mexican American had become so passionately meaningful. This is the year that her closest friend, who was white American, said, "I finally get it. I value you and me more, and I understand this country." She knew that it was the social studies class which provided a Mexican American perspective that had brought them both to this place of appreciation and understanding. It is this very perspective that had been expelled from their literature and social studies coursework by the governance that she had believed would protect the students and her learning. All expelled without due process because a Mexican American vantage point was deemed intolerable. Had we not grown beyond intolerance, she questioned, recognizing the true, distressing answer. The death of a governing board had meant the death of so much within the governing body. The casting of votes had been reconfigured, minds had been changed, and hearts had been lost. She learned all of this by attending the board meetings and studiously watching and listening. She recalls the day that her cherished books were stacked, lifted, and packed into large boxes labeled banned books. Her books, her authors were abducted with no time for farewells. The act, she felt, was cruel. Would the books also be set aflame? No, she immediately responded in her thoughts. Enough had been accomplished. Labels branded her and all of her friends as sheep, following the dictates of certain adults. In so doing, the adults were portrayed as exploitive and the students as stupid. She and her friends were just standing up for what is right. There were no adults in the shadows. She thought, don't they get it? We don't like adults to rule when we know what to do. Her teacher prods her to become engaged, and her thoughts are temporarily interrupted. She turns her focus to the book before her. It does not pull her. It does not enchant her. She re-engages. Her teacher, after all, remains delightful, though she believes her teacher's spirit has been deeply, deeply wounded. How could it not be? The bell rings, and at last she's able to wander outside. She sits on the grass and attempts to allow the wind to flee through her thoughts, her worries. The wind subsides and she is left with her qualms. She needs to understand what has changed and why. Today there is no escape, and finally she must understand. She stares at the gigantic T on the main and imagines the thousands upon thousands of Tucson High Badgers who have passed this way, so many of them of Mexican ancestry. Were they also shown through repeated actions that their Mexican heritage was to be silenced? Of course. There are too many stories told by her nana, her tios, and her mom of such silencing for her to begin to unravel at this point. She had not imagined that she too would have a story, such an enormous story. It is the very identity of Mexican Americans that has been challenged in an effort to silence history, literature, art, and music. Curriculum ripped from the teachers, authority stripped from their director, all judged and condemned. The uncoded message is prevalent. There's only one American perspective. All else will be silenced. At best, at worst, any other perspective will be muffled through weakened, diluted, multicultural curriculum. Either plan succeeds in cleansing the Mexican-American perspective. She begins to weep quietly because she finally understands there are those with elusive power who remain to desire that the Mexican identity and experience be held in silenced, oppressive place. In a silenced, oppressive place. She can almost hear the whispers, "Stay in your place." The words find themselves coded in state legislation and school board resolutions. There are those who will forever work to silence what they do not understand or what they fear. She understands, and with this she recognizes that she will never, ever be the same. She is resolved in embracing her Mexican heritage more firmly than ever, for it is what strengthens her to stand as an American in this struggle for social justice. She understands in this moment of absolute pure silence, and she knows that she will never be silenced. I dedicate that to the intellectual warriors, to the Mexican-American teachers, to the alumni of every Mexican-American studies class, and to those that are here to listen with their hearts. Thank you.
Christine Barca, David Morales, Frida Espinosa Cárdenas.
Hello, my name is Christine Badke. I'm a community member. I came here tonight to listen to the voice of my community. I'd like to thank you for doing the same. We've heard from students, we've heard from parents, we've heard from community members. For most of what I've heard in this room today, it's been in support of the Mexican American Studies program. I also support the Mexican American Studies program. I support the teachers, I support the students, and I support my community and what it means to them. I also look towards our future. I looked at the desegregation of the ELL programs. I have faith that that's a justice issue, and that will be, it's not appropriate, it's not the time, it's not right. As far as bilingual education, if you look at our community and where it's at now, and where we're going, and the opportunity that we have for our future, not only the future for Tucson and our community and our culture and preserving it, we have an opportunity to develop economically in business. We have an opportunity to develop in our overall well-being and public health for keeping relevant education. you know, our children's future, our future. It's a great loss if we lose these programs. I'd like you to take into consideration the voice that you've heard here and just know that it's just the tip of the iceberg as far as what our community has and what it represents. Again, I have full confidence in the Mexican American Studies program and it being reinstated, as well as the teachers and the administrators. I also have confidence in the ELL program being abolished. It's not appropriate in this time and place. And I also encourage the bilingual education to be reinstated into Tucson Unified School Districts, as well as Sunnyside and our other school districts. And I thank you for your time and your consideration and the work you do here, not only for this eradication.
Well, the good news is I came in late, so I think I'm one of the last speakers, so it's for everyone here. Just to reiterate what some people said earlier, I'm as involved. I try to go to every board meeting. I try to be involved in. You know, I teach on the other side of town. I had to hurry up over here, so that's why a lot of people are working. It's during the weekdays. I don't know why it's going to be on Saturday or Friday, whatever. I'll say things as fast as I can because I only got 3 minutes. But of course, I support the return of MAS. I think to not return MAS is a grave injustice because it shows that you can get away with breaking federal court orders, and the federal court will kind of change the rules for you. Because as far as I'm concerned, the post-unitary status plan is still in effect right now, and it says to this day MAS should be taught and afforded to the students, and it's not. So TUSD continues in violation of federal court order. I think, in addition, and I also want a full return of bilingual education. I think that's forced segregation. It's paid for with desegregation dollars, which is ironic because when you hear right-wingers, it's so backwards. Listened on the radio today, calling us haters and reconquistas and all this stuff, and it's like, whatever. I was doing a power analysis as I was sitting here. I heard I missed a lot of good speeches at the beginning. But one thing that bothers me is, you know, why is TUSD like this? Why does TUSD have this problem? And besides, you know, common racism by the leaders who don't understand the community, I think it has a lot to do with the law firm Dennis-D-Cassini. And I find it very troubling that the guilty defendant that's guilty of racism gets a say in the unitary status plan. And if you look at the racist parts of it, you know, it has to do with the Dennis-D-Cassini firm. The objection, not even MAS, but culturally relevant. Oh no, heck no, we can't have culturally relevant. Objection. Bilingual ed had to be objected to by 2 parties. I'm pretty sure one of them was TUSD. Because I got the impression that the special master might have been in favor of that. I know the Mendoza representatives were in favor of that. I don't know, but that's just my conjecture. The Dennis-D-Cassini firm tends to be behind all this stuff. They're the ones that wanted us off the DSEG plan, then they're the ones who are opposed to MAS coming back, but yet they're the ones that are defending MAS at the state. So it's just like, they're just making money left and right. And you know, if the kids fail out and they go to prison, well, guess what? Dennis-D-Cassini makes more money as a board member of the TCA. So I think it's very troubling, and I think as the special masters should really take that into consideration that even though they're 1/3 or 1/4 of the parties, they're actually one of the most guilty parties out there, and we can take that into consideration. I know they have a lot of power over Petticone and the board, but I want to say another thing. In terms of, I'll be really quick, in terms of implementing this plan, I have a lot more to say about my time, but it's going to take the community, and it's going to take the new board, and it's going to take a bold vision from you guys. And I just want to say to the community personally that I apologize to any people out there who we are traumatized, and I'm traumatized, and I've been, you know, our community has been split, and I've been part of that. So I want to apologize to board members. I want to apologize to Crystal, to Cam if he's here, to Adelita, to Augie. I want to apologize to other people that I might have fought with over the years, or the months. This is really a big task ahead of us, and we need to work together. I'm really sorry.
Good evening, my name is Frida Espinosa Cardenas, and I'm a federal grant health program evaluator here in Tucson, and I am a product of bilingual education, Roberts Elementary, Ross Creek Bilingual Middle, and Tucson High. My first spoken language is Spanish, but thanks to my bilingual dual language education at Ross Rouge, I learned to write and read Spanish starting at the 6th grade. By sophomore year in high school, I had my AP Spanish credits and was enrolled in all honors and GATE classes. My AP credits in Spanish permitted me to enter the University of Arizona as a sophomore. Because of my academic Spanish ability, I was able to go back to Mexico to obtain a master's in public health for free, by the way, and come back and implement the global health skills I require within Tucson's community health organizations. I also just came back from Argentina and Uruguay, where I presented my academic work in Spanish and met with former ministers of health of several Latin American countries. I'm not sharing all of this to illustrate how blessed and privileged I have been, but because I am evidence that when culturally relevant pedagogy, bilingualism, and biculturalism is fostered consistently throughout a student's life, our society benefits and our communities prosper.
Alright, I guess I'm the last one. First of all, I just wanted to thank everybody for being here, especially you guys for hearing us out and being really tentative to what we have to say. I want to thank everybody who is still here. You know, you all showing your support, so thank you. I wanted to thank all of my teachers, not just the ones that I had in the actual classes, but all of the teachers that are involved in MAS. They've all been a part of me, and they've all been a part of who I am, and I can honestly say that I wouldn't be here right now if it weren't for all of them. I also want to thank all of, I'm just thanking everybody right now. I want to thank all of, also like my students, or not students, but all my, Unidos members. I want to thank all the class members, anybody who's been involved in organizing around Mexican American Studies. The only thing that I really wanted to reiterate, I mean, y'all heard all the points, is that I want really to be that we have that accountability for the district in this plan, that we make a committee from our actual community that has voting powers and actually being able to say what's going on in this district, and I want that committee to be able to hold it accountable to what the plan says. Also support wholeheartedly the Declaration of Intellectual Warriors, which I co-wrote along with Isa. I don't know, just thank you everybody for being here. And that's about it. Thank you.